in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. And Cayman Airways. Call them on 949-2311 to book your nonstop flights to Los Angeles and Panama. And now, Barbados. And Digicel, Cayman's bigger, better network. And Doctors Hospital. Peace of mind is important when life happens. Doctors Hospital. Always there for you. Call 949-6066.
But I do have some questions.
There are more questions than answers.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
What is on your mind, Cayman? If you are ready to talk, we are ready to listen. Here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Thanks for joining us here on another fantastic Friday. As we get into the weekend, we have the good company of Mr. Ian Gilmour. We're going to talk to you, and they call it AI. Well, is there another name? And what does it mean? And is it good and bad, indifferent? Well, you want to know, please stay tuned for Talk Today.
Talk Today is reminding you.
Avoid any statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use indecent language or make any statement that is false or misleading. Call 1-800-534-8255, 949-6990, 949-8037, or WhatsApp us on 925-3261.
Email Talk Today at candw.ky. Let your voice be heard.
And now, back to Sterling Dwayne Ebanks. Radio Cayman Talk Today.
Hey, welcome back, and thanks very much. And I'm always grateful for the many, wonderful people in our society who are willing to share from their not only expertise but experiences. And to our good friend Ian Gilmour, not just through the SEZC as Cayman Enterprise today has facilitated, but as we interact in our communities, increasingly, at least there was once, maybe it's changed now, we are more alike than we're not, but yet we allow certain things to divide, to differentiate, and sometimes, relegate us to the margins, but maybe there's an app for that. Maybe. How are you, my friend? How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
All right. Thanks again for coming on, and the whole notion of intelligence and intelligent design and differentiated learning and the idea of critical thinking. I have to wonder sometimes, how critical are we? How much thinking do we do? And when is that critical thinker, as in the past, being celebrated and revered, is now somehow looked at as less than? The conspiracy theorists of today was probably the critical thinker of yesterday. So introduce us to the world today as you see it. Through your lens.
Through my lens.
Through your lens.
I live a very strange life because this is all I do for a living, and you kind of get into a bit of a bubble. So I spend this week alone. I've just had to crack open maths books that I haven't opened for. They sit up on my bookcase trying to make me look intelligent, but they're collecting dust, and I've pulled them off and started to crack them open because there's some things we're working on. And it goes back to, school maths. Quite a lot of the mathematics, we discussed this last time, is 100, 200 years old. So I kind of spend a lot of time looking at, if you like, the fundamental building blocks. I'm not a mathematician, but, I'm trying to understand how these things actually work, like on a fundamental level, so you can design them and build new, if you like, iterations of the current state of the art. So where I see it at the moment is that, for example, we're working with Intel. And they're really, they've just starting to break ground on 100 billion of investment across 4 sites in the United States. Right, they've got 8.67 billion from the CHIPS Act from the Biden administration. They're going to build $100 billion worth of data centers. They've got to have something to run on it, right? There's got to be some kind of purpose because these chips need to process information. So what kind of information are we going to be putting into these tools? I don't know. It'd be nice, from my perspective, if it was something that made society better, not worse. But who knows how we're going to take this forwards. But, as we discussed before the program, it'd be really great if society expressed itself up front and said, these are the kind of things we want and these are the kind of things we don't want, and kind of lay it out. Because if the powers that be, including, our customers always, right? Yeah, the customer's king. If customers, society is saying this is what we want, this is what we don't want, that's a signal, right? If it's all in a vacuum, then unfortunately we may end up with stuff that we don't want.
Right. And as you referenced that phrase, the powers that be, I think many of us immediately think of an elected or appointed government, to those in authority and organization that makes the decisions. But if the society sees itself as the powers that be, like the consumer who say, that product, might have thought it was a good product from the designer, the manufacturer, and the marketer, but as a consumer, it's useless. That product would probably either not remain in the market or will be somehow changed. So by extension, if the parents and the wider society look at how society is evolving, what is transpiring, what is being neglected, they become the powers, in a sense, to dictate, define, and ensure that what we're doing as a people reflective of the more good than bad, just like the consumer in the marketplace.
Absolutely, but you have to be educated, right? Because this stuff is it's like everything we're seeing in society today in digital. Everybody's got a view. Many views are informed, many views are uninformed. The ones who are informed and have spent some time thinking about it will come up with dramatically different conclusions than people who are uninformed. And you need to. Human society is very messy. Yeah, really messy, and this technology is also creating. There's already, statistics out there, and they're probably going to get blown out. But by 2026, 90% of online content will be machine generated. So that means only 10% will be from humans, and that's just around the corner. So that means that you're going to be consuming 90% of what you have in front of you. May be generated either by a machine or a machine that's been informed by someone, maybe a foreign actor in a political process to try and get an outcome that they want, and they're using these, if you like, this brute force compute to influence society. So that you do need to, I think society, it's a really hard one, right? Because we're all busy, we're all trying to pay the mortgage and pay the rent and whatnot. But this technology is coming, and it's coming fast.
Well, with that, I think back to the early days of, assembly lines and automation and the like, and there was a pushback, seemingly, as we read our history books, from the employee, that the employee would be displaced. Robots are coming, and now we are at a space where we don't think for ourselves. We don't have to think. The car and the plane could drive itself. The individual could sit and have a Quizlet generate answers that we don't have to do anything. The basic concept of accounting no longer is the person with pen and paper or even an electronic device. It's now being done by this thing. Are we as a people, I'm not saying this to be inflammatory, just naturally lazy? Are we willing to abdicate, as we do with parenting, our responsibilities? What is it,
That's above my pay grade. I'm just building technology, but I think the one thing is that it's not just it's not a dishwasher. It's not an appliance like a vacuum cleaner. It's something that's gonna affect many. It already is affecting,
right?
And it's been in place for quite a while, but it's going to start to I think transform quite a few processes that. It's almost like you need labelling, because I think like with products, so if you buy something, you want to know if it's genetically modified, has it had hormones in it, etc. In the same way, you probably want to start understanding digital assets, digital products, whether they've been, how were they manufactured, what was the input from AI, what was the input from a human, because it is rapidly becoming easier and easier for videos, text to just be generated automatically.
Right, and as you share that, I'm thinking of the concept of the tail wagging the dog, and to what extent we're looking at these things and we're accepting algorithms. There's an app for that. We're allowing these things to not only dictate but to define our lives and our existence. And at what point we're not thinking, we're just robotic, automatic, just responding to whatever unfolds. Some would use it in a derogatory referred to us as sheeple. And
I've heard that before.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I say that to ask ourselves, is it now more than ever as we embrace and leverage the technology, do we need to look and understand how its impact? I appreciate your outline and you talk about, the good AI, the bad AI. Is there such a thing and what's the difference? But also the impact here in Cayman on the lives of those who live here. So when we come back and we look to some of that, and to pick up on what you said at the outset, mathematics doesn't care what you look like as the user. It's just a number. It's going to say what it's going to say, irrespective of what you might think, how you might look, where you might be. The numbers don't lie. It's just interpretation, application. So could AI be that thing that is just there, or could it be that thing that, like the foreign actor and the political stage, deliberate to skew an outcome? Are those things we can talk about?
100%.
All right. Mr. Ian Gilmour sits with us, and I'm excited. I must say you had me up quite early, reading and listening and trying to learn, because this is not just about the science and the emerging technology. This is about societal consequences.
100%.
All right. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
At Doctor's Hospital, we know life happens, and usually when you least expect it. So when unexpected medical issues arise, you need quality care close to home. Located in the heart of Georgetown, our accomplished team of physicians and medical staff treat minor urgent conditions such as migraines, chest and abdominal pain, shortness of breath, burns, broken bones, open wounds, and more. 24 hours, 7 days a week with no appointment necessary. Peace of mind is important when life happens. At Doctor's Hospital, we're always here just for you. Need to speak to someone? Call 949-6066.
As a little girl, I dreamt of traveling to faraway places and foreign lands. I tell you what though, no more dreaming. I'm going flying with Cayman Airways. How blessed are we in the Cayman Islands to have a very own national airline? Girl, you can fly to so many international destinations without the hassle of connecting flights. On top of Jamaica, Cuba, and Honduras, you got non-stop flights from Cayman to New York, Miami, Tampa, and even Denver, Los Angeles, Panama, and child, they now have Barbados. Going to be a little cafe con leche and Hollywood Squares for this old gal.
Make your travel dreams come true with Cayman Airways, offering non-stop flights for non-stop adventures in Panama, LA, and many more places in between. For details and to book, call 949-2311, contact a travel agent, or visit CaymanAirways.com.
From boat days to beach gatherings, leave the catering to Subway. Choose from small and large sandwich platters, double meat wrap platters, and top it off with optional cookie platters for dessert. Or ask about our Subway box to go with the option of 6-inch or foot-long sandwich, 1 cookie, and 1 bag of chips. For all occasions and celebrations, let Subway focus on the food so you can focus on the fun. Visit subway.ky for catering options. Subway. Eat fresh.
Hey Cayman Islands, Digicel has teamed up with Capella for an amazing giveaway. Want a ticket for you and a friend to attend Cayman's largest music festival? Here's how. Activate a 30-day Prime Max plan or be an active postpaid customers. Don't miss out on this epic event. Rush to Digicel store or check out the My Digicel app for your chance to win. Digicel, better connected.
CUC Advisory. Customers are advised of a scheduled outage on Tuesday, April 9th between 9 a.m. and 1 p.m. for Point Dexter Road from Melrose Landing to the security gate at Patrick's Island and all side roads. For more information, please contact CUC's customer service team at 949-5200 or email service@cuc.ky.
In life, the more you have to lose.
The more you love, the more you worry.
The more people rely on you, the more you have on your mind.
I have peace of mind,
knowing that whoever I care about
is protected by the very best.
With Sagicor Life of the Cayman Islands, you'll have critical illness coverage and life insurance to help you protect what matters most. Call 949-8211 for more information.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today. What is on your mind, Cayman?
Hey, welcome back, and thanks to Ian Gilmour for sitting with us. And I'm wondering, as we talk about AI, how many people right now in the Cayman Islands, not just globally, but in the Cayman Islands, and specifically who are listening, go, oh, AI, excited, I want to hear about it, and go, oh, AI, and let me change the channel. And in so doing, are we doing ourselves a disservice because we don't appreciate the impact? Pilots, are flying by wire, a phrase you used earlier. I'm like, wow, that sounds great. And yet, wait a minute, they fly by wire? The High Wire Act falls. That doesn't sound good. When you look at it, are we not thinking of the potential impact? Long ago, you had redundancy built into systems. That was a good thing. You were a bad actor if you didn't have that in your organization. We have contingency plans for organizations should a particular thing happen. A natural disaster, you can shift your operations off-site, whatever. But today, those safety nets, even that phrase in the social sciences and governments and things, they're bad things, or seemingly presented as such. So why is AI so embraced? Why are we so willing to accept it without question? Or is it?
Well, part of it is you've got no choice. I'll give you an example. If you're a LinkedIn user or you're using Google Docs, they've already given you the AI. The AI's there. It's like, do you want me to suggest this for you? They're already prompting you, right, in the app. So if you're using anything, obviously you've had these technologies have existed for quite a while on your phone and helping you give predictive text and what have you. But it's becoming much more powerful. It won't just predict the next word; it can predict the next sentence, the next paragraph. It could do like 65 pages effortlessly, and it's just there. So part of the problem is that we've already got it, and we're kind of getting used to it, and we're being, if you like, not groomed, the wrong word, but we're being,
program.
Well, maybe, and obviously, I work in the industry, so I want everybody to use this stuff, but part of it is part of it's good, right? Part of it helps us to do stuff, but it's the stuff that bad actors could be using that you don't realise you're being manipulated, and that's the scary bit.
All right. In sharing that and preparing for today, I went back to some things I saw way back when, and I did very consciously see it in a different way because I was searching. So celestial mariners, who would use the skies as they navigated, the London cabbies as they were. Seemingly, there have been studies to indicate that the synapses and neurons and all the stuff in their brain fire much more than, say, some of us today who don't use our brains. And I'm not saying that in any way, but there is seemingly the more you engage your mind, not only does it stave off some of the, illnesses like dementia and Alzheimer's, but the more connections you can see when you do the MRI and similar imaging. So the more we use the muscle, the better it is. Use it or lose it. But today we sit at the computer and we say, hey, I want a 50-page book, 5,000 words, whatever, on this, and press a button, pronto, it appears.
Done, yeah.
Wow. I mean, I don't want that.
No.
We don't have to think.
No. No. I mean, I think we're quite social animals. There is, I think, we've still got like a lot of residual markers from our evolution. I was talking about lizard brains and things like that. So there's a lot of behaviour. So, some people gorge a whole bucket of ice cream because, it's just like yummy and I'm going to get it in. And that's kind of a primordial thing. It's deep within our DNA. And obviously, you can go and get another bucket of ice cream, whereas however many eons ago, we would gorge on food because we might not know where our next meal's coming from. So we've got these behaviours that we can't, they're the heuristics that we can't really shift. So we need to lean into them and understand some of these problems. We were talking about confirmation bias earlier. As human beings, we like to think we're modern and savvy, but in reality, we've got very primitive instincts. When you're faced with doing something the hard way or the easy way, I think most people would agree doing the easy way is the best way, right? But unfortunately, there's so much stuff out there now that technology is, you could get through the day without thinking about anything.
All right. I like the way you've asked us to structure it. Good AI, bad AI, and the fact that, what is that impact, if any, on Cayman, because I think many of us see ourselves here, and I do it. Oh, we're just but a speck, on a map. Sometimes we wouldn't even see us up here. But yet, if we look at the Cayman impact, historically we've traveled the high seas. We've had what would be today akin to ambassadors with the Nordic countries. We traded, with the New England coast. Even today we are impacting globally. But we're also impacted by what is happening. The Cayman context, our government is talking about e-commerce. Our banks are digitizing so much that in the event of some just power outage, we might not be able to access our banking. In the event that an employee, for whatever reason, inadvertently or otherwise, does something on your account, you may not be able to access your account. The government has its readers in many ways. So let's look at some of the good uses, as you shared, some of the bad, and maybe take it through. Is there such a thing as good AI?
I hope so. Because that's what I keep telling everybody my stuff is. But I think it's easy to kind of think of a good AI as something that does something better, that has a better outcome for someone. So a really nice use case is in healthcare. So you get false positives and false negatives. I think we're getting to the point now where mammograms, they're very, very hard to analyse. The machine learning is getting to the point where it's either on a par or edging ahead of human skills. Yeah. So now you would never let an AI decide if someone's mammogram has detected breast cancer or not. But what you could do is it's human augmentation, where you can say to the person analysing this image, this is what I think. Right, up to this degree of statistical certainty, it's these areas. You have a deeper look and you have a think about it, and you can go back, and then the human can review those results and make a decision based on their experience using their knowledge of the physical world. Because remember, statistics is just like ones and zeros. It doesn't understand the concept of a human body and human tissue. So there's a really nice example where the reduction of false positives, false negatives is really good in healthcare, for example. Education, you can foresee where obviously we're blessed in this country with a great education system, but if you're in Africa or some parts of Asia and there's not great budgets, being able to get really good education going could be that actually becomes one-on-one tutoring across the internet. And therefore schools wouldn't even need to actually employ teachers. It'd be better if they did have teachers, but if a school has no teachers, it doesn't even have a school, you have to learn from home, at least that will then give hundreds of millions, if not billions of children the opportunity to start learning on a par with well-educated societies or well-financed education systems. So there's a couple of examples. There's many more, I'm sure.
Sort of like those open universities, those MOOCs that we had way back when, whether it's free, other than having access to internet, you can access these courses with, professors who have done these lessons, and you can get that. But with all of this, does it not mean that the individual who's programming, and the programmers and the program itself, has to be by someone who's competent, who's knowledgeable? The machine, the computer, the algorithm can't read itself, or can it? I mean, will these robots get to that point where they're like, hey, let's take this and we can tweak it?
I mean, machines are learning off machines now, synthetic data and they adversarial programming and all sorts of different techniques. I mean, there's no one flavour of AI. There's tons of different ways.
But then and you help me to understand a phrase like source code. So wouldn't that machine that is learning and now is learning from itself initially need to come back to something initially that gave it that ability to start to think and to do?
So you've got your initial conditions, which can be set up in a laboratory, but it's I mean, this has been going on for a long while. You've got AlphaGo, taught itself how to play one of the most complicated games in the world, and there's many other examples. So I mean, basically we work in the AI world. You work in use cases, so you find something you want to achieve, and then you use the tool to fix it. And the field is evolving so fast that there's so many different tools coming out every day. Literally, it's impossible to keep up.
But this is it, and I consciously, in trying to prepare, I want to be able to understand the lingo. I want to be, as if I was preparing for a lecture, and I wanted to go into the class with some insight into something so that it's not all, just unfamiliar to me. A lot of terminology is almost industry specific. There are things presented in a way that I thought, oh, wait a minute, I read that and I go back. And it's contradictory, or it seems so. And it's not just that it's in a different language. It's almost as if it's presented in a way that maybe esoteric.
We call it black box. So it's black box technology. So there's a really big theme starting to emerge. It's been around forever, but it's really sort of coming back again, which is explainability. So the ability to actually get the black box, open it up, and start to understand what's going on under the hood, because it is very complicated. And that's one of the biggest problems you've got with large language models when they're in the trillions of parameters. It's almost impossible. It is impossible for a human being to just debug a 1.7 trillion parameter model like ChatGPT-4. So explainability is becoming a big issue. And one thing that humans are quite good at is visualization. So we're turning them into graphs. So to make it a bit easier to visualize, but the things are massive, and the reason that machine learning is if you like exceeding human capacity for just, if you like, absorbing information is because they're on these huge machines that are doing, they measure it in teraflops, so they can do just one single server can do, or one chip can do something like 7 trillion teraflops a second. It's just like insane amounts of processing, but it is just ones and zeros. It doesn't have any context. So I think where humans, if you get an algorithm or you get a process and it runs, then we need the humans to come in and kind of try to understand it. The problem is, the bigger it is, the more complicated it is, the harder it is for us to get our heads around it. And the analog for that is the financial crisis. We discussed that last time. If humans cede responsibility or decisions to these complicated processes, generally speaking, there's going to be something goes wrong, and we're going to pay the price.
I mean, as I listen, and recently, the phrase black box, we would make that synonymous up until this moment for most of us with the airplane. The black box is that thing that we need to protect. Men would joke of a comedian is, well, if this thing is so indestructible, why don't they make the whole plane out of it? Right?
The black box, yeah.
The black box. But is it a black box in computer or Pandora's box?
No, I think so. We have these different concepts. It is a different paradigm. So the black box technology is one where you've basically it's almost like you can't see inside it. Whereas the black box you're talking about, we open it up. It's the opposite of that. I think there's a lot of different trends coming through now, because as people are starting to get up to speed, it's coming out of the laboratory and it's coming into mainstream life, people are starting to question it, which is good.
Right.
So normal people are going, hold on a minute, do you mean this and that? And of course, as the sort of as the engineering starts to become more mainstream and people start using it, there's a really nice sort of feedback loop.
Right.
And ultimately, a lot of these companies need to make money, right? So, because a lot of the one of the biggest problems in the industry is that they're spending hundreds of millions of dollars on training these models, and they've got to recoup that money. And so therefore you'll see Google's just coming out with, they're trying not to cannibalize their search business, but they're starting to come up with a paid for service using artificial intelligence. That's really interesting development recently. And they've got to do it because they're spending so much money building these things. They need to recoup it.
As we go into the break, I mean, the phrase that keeps coming to mind, trust but verify. And as you're sharing, I'm wondering to what extent. So we talk more about the good, but we can look at some of the bad, and then how that goes through. Our phone lines are open, though, if you want to call and be a part of a discussion. What a wonderful way to end a Friday. I mean, you're going to go into it ready to take the test on Monday. 949-8037 or 949-6990. Please stay tuned for Talk Today.
You know who this is? That same old girl that went to Hollywood and Panama? Well, guess what? The fun ain't done yet, because this year, I going to country concerts in Denver. I got kick up my heels in Times Square, and I got find my way to Barbados. I got keep living the dream with Cayman Airways. We so blessed to have them. I tell you what though, this old girl's feeling younger than ever.
Make your travel dreams come true with Cayman Airways, offering international non-stop flights from Cayman to New York, Miami, Tampa, Denver, Los Angeles, Panama, Kingston, Mobay, La Ceiba, and Havana, plus Barbados. Enjoy free rum punch, free in-flight entertainment, free seat selection, and free meals on select flights. Call 949-2311, contact a travel agent, or visit CaymanAirways.com.
From boat days to beach gatherings, leave the catering to Subway. Choose from small and large sandwich platters, double meat wrap platters, and top it off with optional cookie platters for dessert. Or ask about our Subway box to go with the option of 6-inch or foot-long sandwich, 1 cookie, and 1 bag of chips. For all occasions and celebrations, let Subway focus on the food so you can focus on the fun. Visit subway.ky for catering options. Subway. Eat fresh.
She hear clunk and her car stop. I was just about to send her some money, so I send it straight to her JN Money Transfer card. It cost me less, and perhaps she use the card, pay the garage right away. She'll get discount through the JN Rewards program in Jamaica. This card make things easy. You can even get funds at any multi-link ATM.
JN Money Transfer Card. Fast, affordable, convenient. Tell your loved ones in Jamaica about it. Sign up is free.
Find your dream car with a Cayman National Vehicle Loan. Enjoy 100% financing, up to 8-year repayment, and a 7% fixed interest rate for the first 5 years. For eco-friendly cars, we'll waive your commitment fee. This only applies to new vehicles. Call 949-8300 or email lending@caymannational.com today.
At Doctors Hospital, we know life happens, and usually when you least expect it. So when unexpected medical issues arise, you need quality care close to home. Located in the heart of Georgetown, our accomplished team of physicians and medical staff treat minor urgent conditions such as migraines, chest and abdominal pain, shortness of breath, burns, broken bones, open wounds, and more. 24 hours, 7 days a week with no appointment necessary. Peace of mind is important when life happens. At Doctors Hospital, we're always here just for you. Need to speak to someone? Call 949-6066.
The 615 Weather Report, Monday through Friday, is proudly sponsored by CG Britcay. Insurance, health, pensions, life, where people come first.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today. What is on your mind, Cayman?
Hey, welcome back, and thanks for joining us. And as we invite you to be a part of our discussion, thank you to some of the listeners who have messaged. One in particular, if I can share, I said, it's a fascinating, interesting topic, but it can be a bit scary. Ian Gilmour, is it scary? Does it have to be scary? Just to use that word as referenced by one of our listeners.
It can be scary. So we have got bad actors already using it. If you think about authoritarian regimes like China, like the Russians, they are experts in this technology and have been for a long time, and they're starting to use it to, you've got a presidential election, you've actually got an election back in the UK. Deep fakes are the tip of the iceberg, right? Because we were just discussing content farms, the ability to churn out all this the garbage effectively, but if it has confirmation bias, if you believe what you're being told and it reinforces your own personal beliefs, but it's been generated by a foreign actor, then it can cause all sorts of problems. So the problem is with AI is that we don't know it's there sometimes.
Yeah, if I might ask, I mean, and this is, well, let's take this call first, and hopefully I remember to ask it. Let's take the call. Hey, welcome. Thanks for calling.
Hello, yeah. As you said, I guess was your last contact from the outside, said it's an interesting subject. But, the gentleman that you've got on, he's in the business?
Well, I was going to get to that in a minute because, is Ian Gilmour tell us? I mean, I just decided consciously today, you know how you start a movie and it's almost the final scene and then it goes back, 2 years ago. That's what was my approach today. But Ian, since the question has been posed,
Yeah,
are you in the business, man?
I'm in the business. I'm in the business of designing technology, and we just a couple of weeks ago got accepted into the Intel Liftoff program, which is what I couldn't disclose to you last time we met, and it is now all over the press. So we actually work with Intel.
Would you then think that the advent of AI coming basically into our consciousness online is equal to the discovery of the transistor?
So there was a comment last week. It was as big as fire. I think that was from the CEO of Google. AI has been around for 40, 50 years, right? Turing was coming up with these algorithms we discussed on the last time we discussed this. Some of the mathematics is 200 years old. The use of the technology is dependent on the transistor. It's dependent on these new, faster chips and more. Actually, AI needs memory. That's the thing that really drives this. We've got so much memory now that we can actually put in memory quite a lot of manipulations. So I'd say it's derivative of the transistor, not bigger.
You don't think it's bigger? Well, I don't know. I guess 60 years ago I was involved with IBM, and it wasn't called AI at the time, but it was called voice recognition. One of the first, I think, elements of when they started to really put AI in people's consciousness. And I think AI is probably bigger because I think that we don't have as much control over what AI is capable of doing than as we had with the transistor, even moving on up to the chip. Because if you go back to the vacuum tube was the big vacuum tube, and then it was the miniature, and you had three elements to deal with. You had the cathode, the grid, and the plate. And sometimes you had maybe an additional grid or whatever in there that controlled all these things. But now, and the general public was not, let's say, as familiar, I won't use the word familiar, with that kind of process as I think they are with AI at this point. So therefore, I think there's, and I think it was referenced, where are we going from it? But it's scary to think that something, you want to say as smart or as dangerous as AI, and it was referenced to some of the dictators, and they're up on all these systems. So, I think it's scary. It's scary to think about it. If you really get down deep thinking about it. So, somewhere along the line, I would hope that somebody would find a cap to put on this AI thing, or at least some grids.
Yeah.
Control grids.
Genie's out of the bottle already, so it's a question of how do we live with it.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thanks again, sir. Anything else you want to share?
Yeah, well, I think your guest referred to it that the general public just grabs everything and says, yeah, let's run with it, and think it's the best thing since ice cream. But I think if it's closely looked at, you're going to find out that it ain't. And like I say, hopefully we can put some grids on it, or caps, or whatever, however you want to call it, some rudders or something on it that you get better direction, better steerage on the process. But with all of the, what is presently known as AI available to the people in all over the world, and everybody trying to manipulate it. Goodbye, Hannah.
Yeah, I'll be a cocoa tea if you're not careful, huh?
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right.
Thank you very much. And I think that caller allows me to say I was going to say prior to the call. When we talk about actors on this side of the world, we think of Russia and China and some of the other countries. I would wonder if from that side of the world, they will look at the US and the UK and the others as a potential bad actors who may interfere with their economies, their political cycle. And if the axis of evil, if you go back to the terminology of post-World War II, if in the US, for instance, would they not use the same technology to allegedly spy on their people as they are alleging that China is using, TikTok? Why it must be sold to the American company? Because they're not going to spy on their own people. They're going to leverage the technology to know what's going on with its own citizens. I mean, not at all.
So I have no experience of espionage. I have no experience of government policy towards other countries. All I can say is that a lot of the technology we have today has come out of research that's come out of the US government. It's come out of a lot of this, if you like, capability is predominantly come out of democracies. The way it's used in autocratic societies is very different to the way it's applied in democratic societies. You look at the EUA Act. I've got colleagues who are pro and anti the EUA Act, but the basic proposition for 411 million citizens in the European Union is that they're regulating AI because they've already recognised that it's going to be quite powerful, and therefore they want to get some controls around it.
Right.
Good, whether those controls are good or bad are debatable, but they've already recognised very early on that it's the only. It has just been passed in the European Parliament, so it's actually the only set of laws in the world today. And you don't have those laws in China. There's no law that stops the Chinese government using it in a particular way. So, I think if you just think about the way that the technology is being viewed by Western governments, I'm sure that their spy agencies are leveraging it to the max. I mean, they'd be crazy not to if they want to get an edge, because their adversaries are. But in civil society, I think it's more about customer protections, product safety, that kind of stuff.
Right. And this is where this discussion we can think of government use and abuse, but where's the citizen engagement and where is that push? And maybe later on that impact that we talk about, put, as the caller just referenced, put some rails on it. Maybe. But when you come back from the break, we'll chat some more.
Yeah.
And let's order some stew turtle. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
From Radio Cayman's newsroom, this is Headlines. Local, regional, international news.
With your latest headlines, I'm Felicia Rankin-Solins. A man aged 52 of Georgetown previously circulated as wanted for serious sexual offenses and arrested on March 25th has now been formally charged with 2 counts of rape. In international news, UK scientists say they have found a new cause behind much of the damage asthma causes. Cells lining the airways are squeezed to destruction during an attack, their research shows, and drugs to prevent this rather than manage its aftermath might break the cycle of harm. The airways of people with asthma are sensitive to triggers such as pollen, pets, and exercise. They become inflamed or swollen, causing symptoms including coughing, wheezing, and breathlessness. Existing drugs or inhalers can reduce this inflammation and help keep the airways open, but repeated attacks can cause permanent scarring and narrowing of the airways. Zimbabwe has introduced a new gold-backed currency called ZiG. The name stands for Zimbabwe Gold. It is the latest attempt to stabilize an economy that has lurched from crisis to crisis for the past 25 years. Unveiling the new notes, the central bank governor said the ZiG would be structured and set at a market-determined exchange rate. The ZiG replaces a Zimbabwean dollar, the RTGS, that had lost 3/4 of its value so far this year. Annual inflation in March reached 55%, a 7-month high. Zimbabweans have 21 days to exchange old inflation-hit notes for the new currency. These are your headlines. I'm Felicia Rankin-Solins.
More news available at www.radiocayman.gov.ky. Check out our social media pages: Facebook, YouTube, X, formerly Twitter, Radio Cayman Headline News.
HSA's Urgent Care Clinic is now open 7 days per week to serve you better. Visit our dedicated team at Urgent Care, Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., and weekends and public holidays, 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. No appointment necessary. If you are experiencing non-life-threatening symptoms and conditions, such as the cold and flu, sprains and cuts, earaches, nausea and vomiting, visit Urgent Care's walk-in clinic at the main entrance of the Georgetown Hospital, now open every day. At HSA, we are committed to caring for you.
Born in Watering Place, Cayman-Brac, on the 8th day of July, 1936, Captain Fred Elman Scott was the fifth child born to Nalio and Vera Scott. Captain Scott worked the seas for over 52 years, a career which saw him span the global currents. In 1953, he joined his first ship, the Beretta, a local cargo vessel, signing on as deck boy, working his way up to bosun. In 1955, he joined National Bulk Carriers, working his way up to able-bodied seaman. In 1959, he signed on the Ore Meteor to go to Marine School in New York, attaining a third mate's license. He joined the Bulk Petrel as third officer, where during one voyage he was solely responsible for using Morse lamp signaling to save a sister ship which had run aground. He continued to flourish and attained second mate, chief mate, master mariner, and radio operator licenses. In October of 1969, he took a job on oil exploration ships as a captain in Brazil. Captain Scott would later move from Brazil, where he spent the next 20 years piloting cruise ships and tankers in Grand Cayman.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today. What is on your mind, Cayman?
Hey, welcome back, and thanks for joining us. And as we continue, not just discussing AI, but thank our guest, Mr. Ian Gilmour, for sharing with us, and to the caller who sparked some intriguing sort of insight. The phone lines are there, 949-8837, and if you haven't called before, here's an invitation to do so now, or 949-6990, or you can WhatsApp call 925-3261. I harken back to the Westerns, not even the spaghetti Westerns, but the Westerns, probably, the good, the bad, and the ugly, hang 'em high. And for some, they might go, well, how does that relate? But you watch the behaviors of people and the sense of where we are. I see that picking up on what you shared with the EU and its new legislation. Just an academic exercise, it would appear that the EU as a whole had done a couple of things in, say, product safety and food safety. There are items in foods today that are probably still licensed and used and regulated by the FDA as acceptable for human consumption. Petroleum-based products in foods. The EU 100 years ago said, nope, we can't do this. Data protection. The EU was a front runner and in ensuring the way its governments looked after some of the big global monopolies, Apple, Google, and assessing whether they were anti-competitive, whether they were infringing on people's rights, and sanction those companies. So we have good examples, but why isn't the rest of the Western democracies following suit when leveraging AI, for instance?
Compared to the EU example?
Compared to the EU example.
So the European Union is, just full disclosure, I studied in Germany. I was out of the country when they voted for Brexit, and I was aghast. So I'm just nailing my colours to the mast. But I'm very pro-European. But the thing is about Europe is that they take the rights of citizens very, very seriously, super seriously. And you listen to the British politicians talk about the deficit, democratic deficit, and da 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 da. But if you look at the European tradition, most politicians are. Can't say all politicians, but I'm trying to generalise. Are trying to do stuff that's good for their citizens, right?
Yeah.
And GDPR did a lot of good stuff, right? It actually created some barriers to exploitation by big tech companies, which, by the way, which actually have some relevance to AI, the right to be forgotten, for example. Yeah. So I think the European Union has got a very, some would argue, is like a nanny state, overprotective. But I like to think of the European Union as they're doing things for the right reasons. Yeah. Now, you can argue all sorts of different in the minutiae of what they're doing, but as a general thrust, they've got out ahead. They knew AI was going to be big, which is pretty impressive, right? For an organisation, I mean, the EU's actually, the European Commission is quite small, right? So they're quite nimble, actually, and they're very educated. Like I mean, I studied in Germany, so I knew some people who used to work in the precursor of the European Commission rather than in Luxembourg. Super smart people, and it's their life's calling. And they do really smart stuff. So I think the EU is almost unique in some respects because they kind of they're supranational. It's not really it's 27 countries, and they do things that are one would like to hope are generally good for positive for society, which is fairly unique because most political decisions are made on 3, 4, 5 year cycles with whichever government's coming in or out, and so the European Union is kind of like balanced out because it's got 27 countries, so it's kind of like almost become sort of some sort of it's a bit of a weird one to explain, but that's the only way I can kind of rationalise it because you don't see it anywhere else in the world.
Right. And the thing is that despite its sort of political composition and questions, depending on our individual sort of political leaning, it's not elected, it's this and that. The idea, as just a cursory look at European history, the amount of conflicts and the divisions and those things that happen over the last 1,000 years. Yeah. Here's an attempt to say, how can we stop fighting against each other? Because for the most part, if you look at it in terms of color, they all look the same in terms of color. There may be difference in ethnicity or nationality or language, but there is that attempt at some sort of unification from the early days of the European Steel and Coal community, the European Economic Community. Now you have in this thing. But I wonder, and this may take us off for another discussion, that growing division politically in terms of what the EU was for markets and free movements of labor and goods, to now we're seeing, was it next year, April, Germany's going to say you need a ESTA-like thing to enter a country. More countries are being responsive in that vein. AI, though, as we come back to the discussion, could it bring us closer together, or could it further divide us by differentiating between nationalities, education, ethnicity, economics, even your environmental, view or impact?
I've got a really good answer for this one, for once. There is an issue in AI called representation disparity. And this is a massive issue where you've actually got relatively few people designing these incredibly powerful algorithms, and they don't represent society at large. So I'll give you a really good example. We touched on this last time, which is dialect prejudice. So there are many, many examples. In fact, one of the sort of top commentators in the space, Dr. Gary Marcus at NYU, was really upset about some research that came out just as we were coming on the air a couple of weeks ago, talking about the fact that you could, if you used a particular dialect in a prompt to ask a question to an AI, it would use the biases within its training data to effectively give you an answer back that reflected your, if you like, your status in society. And quite often not, if you were from a sort of, in inverted commas, a minority, it could actually, that bias could be prejudicial to you. And that was in the training data. So this is so overt, if you like, racism has been kind of these thing called red teams, and the overt racism's kind of been ironed out. So it's kind of a bit deeper in the system, but it's still there. And dialect prejudice is like, it's really pernicious because you don't quite know it's there. But this is the problem you've got, is that, so to answer your question, is this technology bringing us together? Yeah, it does for the 7 or 8% of the population that's been involved in designing it, but the other however many billions of people that aren't represented in that clique, aren't being represented. And that's one of the biggest challenges that we face in this technology, is that it's the bias inside the training data isn't being addressed adequately.
With that, then, I'm seeing a number of things immediately come to the fore. We're hearing some concerns. I don't want to say that, it is widespread, but it seems to be rearing its head. AI's use in HR. So a resume comes in and it's processed in a certain way because of how it's presented. The best candidate doesn't always get a look at.
I wouldn't use AI in HR.
I wouldn't.
Not today.
Either.
No, it's not ready.
All right. You talked about that 7-8% of people that are being used to sort of train the system. We understand that facial recognition can create a lot of unfairness, injustices, misidentification for certain groups of people versus others. Is that true?
Yeah, it's really. I mean, in the EU AI Act, they talk about high-risk applications, and facial recognition's right at the top.
Okay.
So it's not because it's got inherently any bias in it. It's actually really good at differentiating between different types of sort of facial makeup. The problem is that it's how you use the data, and it's often a surveillance issue. It's well authoritarian. To take a really interesting example, in China, you could pay at KFC China for years with your face. It's like, cool, I could pay with my face. The problem is all that data sitting with the state, and the Uyghur population is being heavily surveilled with really high definition CCTV. And even as they're moving across public spaces, they get intercepted by police because they're walking funny or because they've got gait analysis. And it's scary. That's the scary stuff.
So with that, is it then, and I will say this to ask two things, right? We as a people globally, and we as the people who have been elected, appointed, are not looking at this and being as deliberate and conscious in our questioning. Go back secondly to the notion of how many times have we even seen the jokes? We ourselves or our children have done it. They pick up the telephone device, they ask the auto attendant, and they just digital voice a question with the expectation to get this hilarious answer. And very much similar to when we are using a telephone prompt, please say or your command, and the response is something different. We laugh at that, but when that's now advanced to where it is, that it's no longer misidentification. You're now been, apprehended by the authorities. You've been delayed by some security force as you travel because this technology now has decided that for whatever reason you pose this particular concern.
Minority Report is not a fiction in some countries.
Okay.
Because they're so technologically advanced. I used to live in the UAE, and their CCTVs are by law in every single lift in the hotels. It's all plugged into the most sophisticated surveillance operation anywhere in the world, and they've been crunching that data for 10, 15 years. They can pick you up in a heartbeat.
We're told that Israel utilizes much of it in a similar way.
Oh, Pegasus, yeah.
So with that, is it then that today's world, and as each successive generation come into being, this becomes their norm? A simple example, there's some of us who still want a physical book to turn the pages. And for some, that is the most archaic and obsolete method to read.
But Gen Z are collecting vinyl. They're collecting books, right? The analog lifestyle has got a lot going for it, right?
Right.
Because it's tactile. It's I have a bookcase at home, right?
Yeah.
I look at all the different tabs I've got open on my computer. It's not the same, right?
No.
So I can actually, go pick a book and, read it at night. I might not get through many pages, but the analog lifestyle is kind of making a bit of a mini comeback because people are rejecting this all digital lifestyle.
But is that akin to a fad? Or some years ago, we saw people wanting to check out their 9 to 5 and go somewhere in the country and pick up farming. These artisans live the good life because they city life, the hustle and bustle. Is what happened today just a fad, soon to be faded trend?
So it's all about economics, because if you think about artisan food, it costs more. So, you know, I think we'd all like to eat more healthily, but it's so expensive, and ditto everything else. I mean, digital, some of the programming I put together and run some of these models I can run for like $100, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're really not, it's not that, the big models cost way more, but so digital manufacturing, if you like, of these models is relatively cheap, and then you can distribute them. I mean, we will be distributing our technology through WhatsApp. Yeah, because there's an API into WhatsApp, so it's really easy to distribute digital assets really easily. But if you look at the corollary to this is that I suppose we are at some point going to get just fed up with it all and crave a sort of simpler life, right?
But I'm finding, and we are speaking to Ian Gilmour, and that technology is something that I want to get to, or if you don't mind, because it's now in the public domain, not only because of what it is, but it's here in Cayman, it's designed, and you can share. And for me, I love this place, all the people that come here who contribute, from whom we can be positioned locally and internationally in a sphere that is, cutting edge, is stellar. All right, we're making a sterling contribution.
I see what you did there.
You see what I did there?
I did.
Dang, man. I paid attention in my English class. But and this is where I want us to start to appreciate that it's the human dynamic that is so important. We can leverage the technology to allow us. Remember when it was Panasonic? Panasonic came out and their logo was slightly ahead of her time. And they had a VCR. And if you don't know what it is, ask your grandmother, because your parents probably don't know. That your telephone that was hardwired to your wall. You wanted to block someone, you took it off the hook. Nowadays, someone like, what? And you could dial that thing, and that would program your VCR. It didn't last very long.
Yeah.
It was slightly ahead of its time. Now you're thinking, what's a VCR?
Was it? Yeah.
All right. So technology can be good, but I asked that to share in that where we are today and the leveraging of technology. Again, are we coming back to space? We're no longer, we're thinking. We're just walking as, there was a time when we used the word drones, but that seems to be a good thing now. We're just these zombies, these mindless, numbless little creatures that are going along to get along.
Well, I hope that there's a balance. Personally, I'm in the industry, so I want people to use my technology, but I also recognise the fact that, as a human being, there's certain things you want to. I personally check. I switch my phone off regularly to just have it off, and I spend a lot of time, especially at weekends, just trying to sort of do. Go for a walk, take the dogs for a walk, go for a swim, just get away from this stuff, because it's not natural for us.
But you do that consciously.
I do.
Right.
I do.
So you remember that last time we spoke, and I said to you, man, I wish I didn't have to have a phone. That was a Monday. Friday afternoon after my mother called, the phone slipped from my hand. Not a very high distance that it fell, and very as gently as possible on a, relatively speaking, soft surface. The phone looked okay. I could not swipe it, could not open it, could not do anything. And for the longest time, I had no access to anything. I couldn't even remember some of the numbers that I called my family, right? And I was honestly at a loss. The data that was there, the stuff I was working on, the reminders I had. Now, I compare that to a few years, well, almost 5 years now, where very deliberately I put my phone aside for 1 month as I travel. Last time I've been away, it was the most liberating, relaxing thing, right? But then my mind was at ease because I planned it. I had access to other devices with those in the group. Now, why I share that example, not to talk about my business, because I really do, but as a person, we now need to be very conscious, as you're doing. Hey, let me put this aside for an hour, for 5 minutes, and have that detox, have that mindfulness. Or are we so bombarded by it that we're, again, mindless, numbless, we're going along and we're not even thinking, we don't have to think?
I think technology's got a role in society, but it shouldn't be. It should be our servant. We should have control over it, and it kind of feels like sometimes it's the other way around. Yeah. Really simple things like just sitting around a table with your friends or your family and just having a conversation. That's a really human thing. To sit around the table all with iPads and phones, and which is what we all do, right?
But the art of conversation is being lost. There is a particular skill set in being a good conversationalist. A fellow who has since passed, he would describe himself in a way that he was a raconteur, right? And he had his business card printed up, and as you understand, he was very conscious and deliberate and engaging in good conversation, something that's lost today. I say that to ask two things. One, we probably, because if I saw it, everybody saw it, saw two videos recently with the current American president and the two prior, talking about different things and referencing sites and events in Cayman. Those who were here would probably go, well, that's just something that somebody put together, right? And you reference and help us to decide and discuss this phrase, a deep fake. Now this same video we laughed at here, but someone who isn't familiar with the Cayman saw it and question, well, when did these guys talk about Cayman? I mean, wow, the president of two or three administrations ago talked about the biggest building in the world with a zillion companies registered, not realizing that this was a deep fake. I say that to ask, remember when the picture of somebody's body was super, and the head was superimposed on it and not the most flattering, and we know it was different. But this video, but for the content, it sounded, looked, and seemed like it was the person.
Yeah. And they're that good now that they're. It's got to. I think it's been for a while now, and I think the problem with deep fakes is we're going to see it in these elections, right? The US election and the UK election. You're going to see this thing in full flight.
What about in the Cayman election? We're anticipating that it will be a video could come up with with somebody who is or is not a candidate saying something that and
how'd you stop it?
Yeah, but. So that was a question I asked last evening of, I want to say loosely, a psychologist. And I'll be honest with you, I made a note, but I discarded it and go, I have no clue what you just said about the technology and the terminology. But basically, the premise that I came away with is that the human condition is such that most of us want to see and hear about others' downfall. And the question was, in the Cayman election, deepfakes are being utilized, and here is somebody who's now being presented in a very negative way. And up until that point, we've believed this person to be a decent person. We've held them in higher regard. But we've seen this thing now. What is the probability that we're going to believe this thing? And the determination is go, see, I told you he was like that. See what she is? Yeah, now the truth comes out. All along the day before, they were the best person in the world.
There is one small advantage you got in Cayman is that on the whole your representatives are quite accessible. So you've got less of a sort of, if you're looking at say there's a mayoral election in London, it's 9 million people or roughly, I don't know how many can vote, and Sadiq Khan's already being attacked by a deep fake that was from. It wasn't a deep fake, actually. I think they did some sort of video and they actually had New York in the background, and it was obvious, right? And they were like, it was atrocious. It was poorly done. But imagine if it had been done really well, and it had used London landmarks, and no one had really worked out that it was a. This is the problem. If you can't work out if it's a fake, then it sows a seed of doubt, and that it's really hard to then undo that.
Be mindful how I reference this. But what if that same video, right, and this was the question that was asked as we were talking, not you and I, as I was listening to some people chat about it. What if that was just a test, just to see how observant the voting public is in that election, to be able to look at it and ascertain, well, is this real or not?
Yeah.
Or how willing are they to be receptive to this thing? Because the human psyche and what we told the brain is always looking for an easier path. And we're willing to accept the bad and to celebrate a person's downfall than to be, oh, look, good job, Johnny. Here's your medal because you earned it.
Yeah. Unfortunately, this is how manipulation can happen, right?
We have a question off here, right? And the question off here, I asked Ms. Susan to make sure I got it correctly, and that's posed to her. If you asked AI to draw God, G-O-D, what sort of the image, what would that image look like? I'd be mindful to venture my opinion, but anyway, what do you think, Ian?
So there's a really complicated question because there's this whole. We could have a whole program about prompt engineering, right?
Yeah.
But the way that we ask questions to these technologies we don't actually know how to ask these questions very well. So depending on how you ask the question and how it interprets it is going to actually give you the output.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the first thing. So how you ask the question, right? Secondly, the question will be different if you're talking that question in India than it would be from, there's a monotheistic system here, and obviously there's a completely different system in India. So which God? So you've got all these different questions, but ultimately it's all about what's in the training data, because these AIs are just algorithms that learn off data that is given. So if you gave it a set of training data that God was actually orange, or purple or green, then it would say, oh, God's green, it all depends on what's in the training data. And bear in mind, each one of these models has got different training data. So you could actually ask the same questions of 25 different models, and you'd actually find they're slightly different answers. So, and that would then be indicative of the fact that each one of these platforms is derivative of what you put into it. So it's garbage in, garbage out. So if you've got a really good corpus around what God is, then it'll come up with maybe an answer that maybe reflects the scriptures. But if you've got something that hasn't got that information in it, it wouldn't be able to answer the question in the way you'd expect it.
So then maybe after this, as we go into the break, leads me back to where we as the human need to ensure that that Russian proverb, trust but verify. We need to ensure that we have the competence, the skill sets, the training, the knowledge, the experience, the expertise to ensure that whatever is inputted, and more important, what is the outcome, is something that we can.
I've got a really good answer for that one.
Oh, don't forget it. You tell us after the break.
Yeah, 100%.
Oh, stay tuned for Talk Today. Ian's answer is after.
You know who this is? That same old girl that went to Hollywood and Panama? Well, guess what? The fun ain't done yet, because this year, I'm going to country concerts in Denver. I got kick up my heels in Times Square, and I got find my way to Barbados. I got keep living the dream with Cayman Airways. We so blessed to have them. I tell you what though, this old girl's feeling younger than ever.
Make your travel dreams come true with Cayman Airways, offering international non-stop flights from Cayman to New York, Miami, Tampa, Denver, Los Angeles, Panama, Kingston, Mobay, La Ceiba, and Havana, plus Barbados. Enjoy free rum punch, free in-flight entertainment, free seat selection, and free meals on select flights. Call 949-2311, contact a travel agent, or visit CaymanAirways.com.
Shop the Brand Source Home Gallery Senior Citizen Sale.
In honor of our seniors, Brand Source Home Gallery is offering a 15% discount now until April 6 on appliances, mattresses, plumbing and bath fixtures, lighting, ceiling fans, kitchen cabinets, custom closets, and more. And I heard right, 15% off store-wide.
If you are over the age of 60, you can purchase for your family and friends. Just show your ID. It's that easy to save 15% with the Brand Source Home Gallery Senior Citizen Sale. Visit Brand Source on Dorsey Drive, Industrial Park, or call 623-5000 for details.
Discover your dream home with Cayman National's home loan. Get up to 95% financing, repayment up to 40 years, and just a 0.5% commitment fee. Your interest rate? Depending on your risk factors, it'll be fixed or variable. Plus, you get a pre-approved credit card. This is a limited time offer. Dial 949-8300 or email lending@caymannational.com today.
Hey Cayman Islands, Digicel has teamed up with Capella for an amazing giveaway. Want a ticket for you and a friend to attend Cayman's largest music festival? Here's how. Activate a 30-day Prime Max plan or be an active postpaid customer. Don't miss out on this epic event. Rush to a Digicel store or check out the My Digicel app for your chance to win. Digicel, better connected.
At Doctors Hospital, we know life happens, and usually when you least expect it. So when unexpected medical issues arise, you need quality care close to home. Located in the heart of Georgetown, our accomplished team of physicians and medical staff treat minor urgent conditions such as migraines, chest and abdominal pain, shortness of breath, burns, broken bones, open wounds, and more. 24 hours, 7 days a week with no appointment necessary. Peace of mind is important when life happens. At Doctors Hospital, we're always here just for you. Need to speak to someone? Call 949-6066.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today. What is on your mind, Cayman?
Thanks for joining us, and to Mr. Ian Gilmour for sharing with us. Now, the whole discussion of AI and the idea that it is almost ubiquitous. It's almost something that impacts us in a way that's not only subtle but significant. It's not only in your face, but we don't even know there's AI behind it from everything and anything. But we asked a question earlier. You say you had a good answer. What was the question? What's the answer?
So the question is, how can you ask it questions and use know the information in there to help you? And that's this almost could be a product placement, which obviously I'm going to do. So we've designed a technology based on a paper that we found when we were doing some research about this time last year. And there's a technique called closed domain. And what this closed domain technology does, it takes if you like, a very precise, they call it data corpus, so it's information, right? And you train your model with that piece of information, and that's all the information that it will answer back. So let me give you an example. If you want to talk about God, the easiest way to be able to ask those questions would be to actually train the model on the Bible, whichever version of the Bible. If you wanted to talk about the Prophet Muhammad, right, peace be upon him, you'd be putting in the Quran, right, etc. So this technique, what it does is that you actually know what's going in, and you know that that's trustworthy information. So when you ask it a question and it comes out, it's kind of come from a sort of an approved source of information. At the moment, what you find with most large language models is they do a thing called web scraping, where they just take every single piece of data on the internet, they scrape it all up, they do a thing called tokenization and then put it into these models, and then you end up with 2 trillion, 3 trillion pieces of data that they then train up, and then you, in theory, you can do anything with it, right? But the problem is some of that data's corrupt, some of it's been machine generated, increasingly that's become the problem, etc. And you don't know where it came from, and you don't know if it's correct, right? So you can ask it a question, but if you've put, like we said earlier, garbage in, garbage out. So one of the solutions is to use smaller models, and that's what we do. Is we actually work with partners to actually help them train smaller models in just the information that they want to work with, and then you can work with that corpus to just get the answers out that are authoritative. So a good example might be in medicine. You might want to do some, we were talking about mammographies earlier, right? This would be with vision data. You'd actually maybe put 30,000 scans in, annotate that information by experts, and that's something called reinforcement learning by human feedback. And then using that, the algorithm will then start to learn what different lesions and bits look like, and then it'll start to say, well, it looks like this. Is this the same? They go, oh my goodness, I didn't see that before. And this is anecdotally, it's called a signal from the noise. So it start to look for signals, statistically. That's a really nice way of actually improving the quality of the information that comes out. At the moment, what happens is there's this just this obsession with just scraping the World Wide Web and every single crevice of the internet, which has all these other unintended consequences. So that's my answer, is that actually our phrase is better, not bigger, right? So we go with not only do we the corpus is we know where it came from, we can actually kind of, because it's small, it's a bit easier to explain. So that's one of the ways that we're solving it. There's lots of other ways of doing it as well.
And is that technology, available to all of us now? And
I'm working on it.
Soon come?
Soon, absolutely. But as soon as it's ready, I'll bring it on and you can play with it.
There you go, man. And as I listened to you, there was movement in architecture, a phrase, less is more. This idea of minimalism and the like. But Bruce Lee, I'm told, once said that he's not afraid of a person who knows how to do 10,000 kicks. He's more fearful of that individual that has one kick that he's practiced 10,000 times.
Yeah.
Right. So with that in mind, if we're scraping the internet and we're getting a lot of stuff, or if we're using one source and we're generating it, if that thing is not initially correct, it's corrupted, we can end up with something that is already confirmation bias. It's giving us a view.
No, it's more fundamental. You get a thing called model collapse.
Okay.
So the model stops working. So this is really AI 101.
Yeah.
You put you get 100% of some data, and you take a chunk of it and you train the model. Yeah. And then you start to get it to a point where you think it's working, and then you take the larger chunk of information to test the model. And as you're testing the model, if it's starting to predict correctly from this new data that it's never seen before, it does something called generalizing, right? And when it becomes able to generalize, and there's statistic tests to work out when it's reached its sort of zenith of generalization, you then say, tick, that model's now ready to work. So that's how it learns. It learns off a little bit of data, off a sort of a collection of data, and then it tests itself, or you test it with this other data. And that's how AI gets trained.
Right.
So there's other techniques that come along called RAG and all this sort of other stuff we won't get into, but that's in essence how AI learns.
So if I understand you, we as people just use the same language. We make generalizations and we get castigated. You shouldn't paint everybody with the same brush. We take a set of facts, we see it happen, we go to a situation, we look at it, it looks similar, and we make generalizations, and from that we extrapolate. Then we get accused of.
No, you're using generalization in a human sense. In a modeling sense, being able to generalize is a good thing. Using generalizations as humans is a bad thing, which is about vocabulary you were saying earlier.
Yeah, right. And thank you for that, because as I was listening, I'm trying to share with people that we're talking about machine language, machine learning, AI, and all the things. And the words that we use in our normal parlance, we got to be careful that we don't conflate them when it comes to this employment.
Contextually, they have a different meaning.
Yeah, and it's not. I was testing this sort of discussion with someone earlier, and it's not semantics. Because there are significant implications of how that word in our general use is actually applied in a specific,
So it is semantics. It's exactly semantics. It's semantic using the context.
And I'm asking that as we as a people, and in particular not just the younger generation, because we're quick to castigate them and say, oh, the world that they will grow up in is where they don't think. But I'm thinking that, no, they're starting to question. You have to satisfy them more of why you're doing this, why that thing is the way it is. And we're thinking, well, no, they're just accepting. I'm prayerful, I'm optimistic that they're actually going to be more discerning, more willing to verify something before they trust it. That's my prayer anyway. Am I off kilter?
No. You so this technology. So as we were talking in the briefing notes, it's very early.
Yeah.
So I think you need to be massive amounts of skepticism about technology generally, and the other thing you have to be very careful of is it's very easy to give your private data away, and people don't realise, like on Facebook and Instagram, all that data is being eaten by these machines every single day.
Right.
And as you give information out, it's being used, right? And you could end up, your holiday snaps, little K-Man could end up in who knows where.
So with that, and I went back trying to figure out how to wrap my head around this topic, and I picked two things. One, the discussions mostly emanating from the U.S. relative to their seemingly the entire parliament, or whatever they're called, Congress, saying, wait, we're going to unanimous on the national security concerns, tell China it has to sell this thing, what's it called? TikTok,
yeah.
to somebody else, and whether it's a Chinese country or owned by somebody else, I'm not even getting into that. So from that, two things were evident. One, a government, a political elected government, can unify immediately to do something if it's so motivated. But secondly, seemingly, just from the things I saw, heard, read, a lot of the populace are going, I don't care if my data is being used by them, right? So that willingness to to not be concerned. Should I be concerned?
I've never been on Facebook ever.
Not consciously.
Well, I probably have appeared on it, but not of my will.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for that is because I knew early on that data was going to end up somewhere else. Right. I use LinkedIn because it's a business tool, and I've got to use something. I can't just live in a digital vacuum. But the fact that people don't care, and it's a really there's quite a generational thing here, because I think a lot of Gen Z and Gen A, they're kind of like I can't think of the right adjective, but it's kind of like almost like a nihilism. It's like it's not about I don't care, the world's ending maybe, or something like that. So they've got this different attitude to data and to the way that things go. But fundamentally, in a digital sense, all of this information is being consumed. That's a fact. Now, are they doing it legally? Are they infringing copyrights? There was a very interesting chat on Bloomberg this morning, talking about the fact that YouTube, there's this thing called Sonar that's come out of OpenAI, which is incredible. I mean, it's got issues, but you can generate a minute of Hollywood standard movie. It's incredible, text to video, text to movie. But they were talking to the YouTube guys saying, have they been using your data? And they're saying, well, we don't know, but if they have, they've infringed not our copyright, the copyright of our creative community.
Yeah,
and that if that is true, then this technology they've been showcasing by this $90 billion startup that's working heavily with Microsoft has broken the law. Yeah, and that is data that has been freely put onto YouTube. Yeah, and if they've done it, they've scraped it and then used this to train their model.
Yeah. That was the second thing, in that we're increasingly starting to understand this idea that intellectual property is something that you should protect, and some are starting to appreciate what it is. It would appear that if many people are conscious of it, but many people also would find an image online. Oh, that's a beautiful image. Let me put it in my marketing material. Let me do this in my backdrop. And I have discovered this week a number of individuals, just by happenstance, found a picture they did, a creative work that they produced, being utilized by many, not only without permission or without credit, but without remuneration. To what extent now are we going to, and I say that to ask, when some of these same people going, well, what is, and how is it being monetized? This data, this picture of, our holiday in Europe, all of a sudden now is being used in a way. Is it that many of us don't understand that that's being monetized, and then how it's being monetized?
You are the product.
Yeah, you are the product.
You are the product.
Yeah.
And if you're on, the reason that people get this stuff for free is you have value. So if you look at Facebook in particular, each I can't remember what the value is. It's something crazy now. Like, it used to be like $50-$60. Now I think they estimate the value of an active Facebook user. I'm going to get this wrong, but let's say it's $100.
It's a lot of money.
But it's a lot of money, because what they do is they not only are they using the information to feed it to advertisers and to understand your lifestyle and do analytics, but they're also now using it to train their AIs. Meta is one of the top firms on the planet for this, and because they've got so much information. Reddit just did an IPO last week, the week before, no, $8 billion valuation. And the reason that is so valuable is because everybody's looking at it as a fantastic resource for training data for AI models. They're talking about the future use of this data because it's so rich and so well labeled, and they've ascribed it this incredible value.
I tried to look back through sort of history and maybe limit it for, say, the last 4 decades. Remember way back when we used to have this thing called a post office, and we'd go there with a key, and there was this thing we called junk mail, and we looked at it, and it was all our advertisements, and we tossed it. We get that same thing now in our digital, and just like the ads reflected our purchases that we didn't quite understand, now it's more evident, allegedly to the point where this technology could predict things about us and target us even before we know we're pregnant, before we know that we're going to be moving house. Now, should not concern us.
But that predates AI. So even just using simple regression analysis, you can do that.
Yep.
Yeah, AI is more powerful than that. So AI would be able to do things. An example would be that it would be able to absorb information on an industrial scale,
right,
and be able to do things with that information to generate new artifacts.
Mm-hmm.
That's the difference. So the junk mail, the way that it could work out things about you, the algorithms was mature enough 20 years ago to work out that you put diapers next to beer in supermarkets on the way home, because that the guy would be coming home, wife would call and say, I've run out of diapers, and he'd pick up beer at the same time. So that those statistics were done 20, 30 years ago.
But didn't the wife say to the husband, fix the child a bottle? I mean,
it could be. I mean, I'm showing my age because it could be the other way around. But the point is that technology, that simple statistics,
exactly.
and by the way, that powerful statistics still has a role in artificial intelligence.
Right.
It's just that we've got the ability to go through more data and detect more signals now.
Right. But this is where I come back to education, because you talk about regression analysis. Today's predictive analytics. We will look at things like trends analysis when we take data and we extrapolate it. But isn't it then that the person or the team has to have the ability to be able to fundamentally process the data, understand what the data is telling, but we're leaving it for this machine to write our books, this machine to dictate our outcomes?
We could, and that will be an option. But I think if you take we have human in the loop type conversations all the time now.
Mm-hmm.
If you just leave it to go on, automatically, it probably is going to fail anyway, because the technology is not quite there. It's still early. But I'll give you a really good example. Level 5 autonomy for cars. It's not happened because number one, it's a really complicated process that humans can do. Sometimes we do it quite well, sometimes we don't. But also there's a lot of spoofing going on. So people will be erecting traffic signs that would actually crash the sensors on the So you've also got bad actors interfacing with it as well. So it's not a discrete system, isolated from the rest of the world. So I think having humans not involved in these processes is a massive mistake.
As we read some of this, and some of it is fascinating, and for someone like me who maybe enjoy reading other things, this is a deliberate, conscious effort to try to embrace it, try to understand it, to see how it's going to be accepted. I recall looking at something where the expectation at some point, the Buck Rogers of yesteryear, you get into this vehicle, it may or may not be flying, but it's going to take you somewhere. The screen is going to be black, and you're going to watch your favorite movie, and you're going to be oblivious to what's around you. You don't like that world, man?
It's not happening. but it's not happening. It's not safe enough. Because the problem is it's safe up to some degree of say 97, 98, 99%. But it's that tail risk that you get it wrong and people die. And we can't take those. Now, you could argue that the algorithms are safer than drivers, probably on a Friday, Saturday night. Probably true, right? Yeah. But the problem is then you've got this vicarious liability, which a colleague of mine, Julie Morris, talks about, where who's to blame? Which AI is to blame?
Okay. I'm reminded that there's a break. We're going to take it. Ian, thanks for chatting. We'll talk some more when we come back.
Absolutely.
All right. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
From boat days to beach gatherings, leave the catering to Subway. Choose from small and large sandwich platters, double meat wrap platters, and top it off with optional cookie platters for dessert. Or ask about our Subway box to go with the option of 6-inch or foot-long sandwich, 1 cookie, and 1 bag of chips for all occasions and celebrations. Let Subway focus on the food so you can focus on the fun. Visit subway.ky for catering options. Subway. Eat fresh.
At Doctors Hospital, we know life happens, and usually when you least expect it. So when unexpected medical issues arise, you need quality care close to home. Located in the heart of Georgetown, our accomplished team of physicians and medical staff treat minor urgent conditions such as migraines, chest and abdominal pain, shortness of breath, burns, broken bones, open wounds, and more. 24 hours, 7 days a week with no appointment necessary. Peace of mind is important when life happens. At Doctors Hospital, we're always here just for you. Need to speak to someone? Call 949-6066.
Find your dream car with a Cayman National Vehicle Loan. Enjoy 100% financing, up to 8-year repayment, and a 7% fixed interest rate for the first 5 years. For eco-friendly cars, we'll waive your commitment fee. This only applies to new vehicles. Call 949-8300 or email lending@caymannational.com today.
Now, more than ever, supporting your immune system is crucial to helping your body fight off illnesses like the common cold, the flu, and COVID-19. At ValueMed Pharmacy on Walkers Road and in Buttontown, we carry all the essential vitamins and minerals to help support your immune system and improve your overall health. Some of our top immunity support picks are vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, elderberry, and quercetin, or the popular 7-in-1 immunity support. Our pharmacists are always on hand to help guide you and answer any questions. Visit ValueMed Pharmacy on Walkers Road or Buttontown. Live happy, live healthy with ValueMed Pharmacy.
Every day, thousands of residents use our roads, and every journey requires responsibility. Our actions behind the wheel can have serious consequences. So, let's make a commitment to safety. The Cayman Islands government invites you to take the Safe Drivers Pledge. The pledge is our opportunity to show our dedication to creating a safer environment on our roads. First, visit gov.ky/road safety/pledge. Read and check all the boxes, fill in your name, and click submit. It's that easy. Let's make our roads safer together and say no more for 2024. Visit www.gov.ky/road safety for more information and to take the pledge.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today. What is on your mind, Cayman?
Hey, welcome back, and thanks to Mr. Ian Gilmour for sharing with us. I must share that I take on board now the sentiments that active listening is taxing. Having you present the way you have, for some, they can find it to be a bit of a challenge, right? Because, well, it can be hard work at times. But you're so engaging. What you're sharing is not just timely, but I think is actually something that maybe we have ignored and not appreciated how impactful it can be. Positive or negative, is that dependent on how we respond, how we embrace, how we engage?
So we started prepping about how to participate, right? and I kind of had to think about the kind of things that we can do here. I think one of the things that I'm really excited about is a couple of years ago, I was with CC and we went into John Gray School. We touched on this last time. I met 8, 9, 10-year-olds. We said, tell us about AI. And we were like, whoa, they get it, right? Gen A, to a certain extent Gen Z as well. They've lived up as digital natives, so they get this stuff. They've been living it. It's kind of their sort of birthright. So when you talk to younger members of the population, you get a lot of eye rolling because, like, yeah, tell me something I don't know. It's like they are really up and educated. They totally, even if they don't understand the underlying mathematics of something, or they just get it intuitively. So I'm not worried about youth. It's more about people who are time poor, rushing around because they've got a job and they've got kids, or they've got to walk the dog or wash the car or whatever it is. They don't have time, right? And you know, we're all really busy. I do this professionally, so you know, for me, it's kind of like I do it because I enjoy it, and I do it because it's, you know, it's what I do to make a living. But I think for the majority of people, it's kind of like, well, this, you know, I've got other things to worry about. But it's happening already. It's been happening for a while, and it's going to get more and more encroach upon our lives, and therefore people do need to take notice and start getting a little educated. So one of the things that I think, some of the things that I think rules the road is be skeptical, right? So just don't accept things at face value. Ask the question, right? Say to yourself, what's going on here, right? Is this a good source of information, right? Be careful, right? Be very careful. Don't share private data, period. Nothing, right? There is no right to be forgotten in a language model. It doesn't exist. So if you put something in, it's in.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's in. So if you ask it a question, if you inadvertently put something like, I don't know why you'd put your credit card in, but it's in, right? There's no way it can undo it, right? So be very careful what you share with these tools, right? Because they go across the internet. There's also a thing called prompt inject hacking, where people have actually built these API layers where they API into a ChatGPT or a Llama or something like that. And they can capture information and then they can divert it, or they can ask different questions. So do not trust anything, all because it's on the Apple Store or Samsung Store or Google. Don't trust it, because even though it's on there and it's maybe got 4 stars, you don't know what it is. And you might say, ChatGPT just scammed me out of it. And it might not be. It might have been an intermediary, right? So do not share personal data, private data, financial information, period. Just don't do it, yeah? And then the other things you can do is just takes a little bit of interest, like listen to commentaries. There's a reference Gary Marcus earlier. There's really fantastic set talks from a group of researchers, but Dr. Emily Bender, she's amazing. They've got this, along with this lady called Gerbrit, I can't remember, Timru, ex-Google actually. She left Google, long story. But they did this really nice paper called Stochastic Parrots. And they talk about all of the risks of the technology today, representation disparity, and, they don't talk about dialect prejudice, but, they start to unearth some of the problems you've got. And, just being a little bit aware of some of if you understand a few of the problems, you help connect the dots, yeah? So, in other words, be skeptical, don't share your data, right? And just listen to some of these commentaries. They're really easy. Some of these are commentaries 3 or 4 minutes long, right? And you can listen to them with a podcast, and it just help you to start understanding some of the themes out there.
Well, you referenced a couple of times, don't share your private data, your credit card. Many of us, we shop online, even our groceries, or we do all the things where we input our credit card into this device in order to get this service or this product. Are you referring to that as well?
Well, no. I mean, we've got to be, so there's a big distinction between where you've got, if you like, a trusted service like a bank, yeah? I mean, there's a lot of spoofing anyway, right? You can actually go on to you got the phishing attacks, and there's lots of different threat vectors. It's that AI is another set of services that are coming along. I'm just saying, be as careful, if not more careful, with these services than you would be with any other online service. It's just being it's good common sense. You get an email from a company that says, "Oh, I've got the latest AI." Don't just click it saying, "Oh, it's AI," because it's still the same old scam. Yeah. So it's just be really cognizant of the fact that there's no such thing as a free lunch, and people are trying, from various places around the world to extract your data, your information, and they'll come at it from all sorts of different angles.
Yeah. All right. Are we going into the news break, Ms. Susan? Is that the plan? And you want to stick with us for the next half hour, or you want to go get some lunch, man? You're good?
I've had my brownie and I've had my banana shake.
You know what you did say early on, that we're going to do the whole show?
Let's do it, man.
All right, let's do it. Got a couple of questions I'll ask about smart cities. I want to talk about those smart highways and the utilization of AI.
Cool.
Maybe some more of the things on how to prepare, and maybe what Cayman should be doing in terms of its technology, its infrastructure, all those things.
Love to.
All right. And then we're going to make an announcement. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
www.radiocayman.gov.ky. Check out our social media pages: Facebook, YouTube, X, formerly Twitter, Radio Cayman Headline News.
With your latest headlines, I'm Felicia Rankin-Solins. The Office of Education Standards will soon initiate a review of the inspection framework. As an integral part of this process, OES is actively seeking feedback from stakeholders across the community through a series of planned community meetings across the Cayman Islands from April to May 2024. In international news, Sierra Leone's president has declared a national emergency over rampant drug abuse. Kush, a psychoactive blend of addictive substances, has been prevalent in the country for years. One of the drug's many ingredients is human bones. Security has been tightened in cemeteries to stop addicts digging up skeletons from graves. There is no official death toll, but one doctor told the BBC that in recent months, hundreds of young men have died from organ failure caused by Kush in the capital, Freetown. The hard rock band Kiss has sold its back catalog of songs to a Swedish music investor for a figure thought to be upwards of $300 million. Stockholm-based Pop House Entertainment also bought the group's brand, likeness, and intellectual property. The sale marks the band's retirement from live performances on their end-of-the-road world tour. Bob Dylan and Bruce Springsteen have also sold their back catalogs for multi-million-dollar figures. These are your headlines. I'm Felicia Rankin-Solids.
More news available at www.radiocayman.gov.ky. Check out our social media pages: Facebook, YouTube, X, formerly Twitter, Radio Cayman Headline News.
Discover your dream home with Cayman National's Home Loan. Get up to 95% financing, repayment up to 40 years, and just a 0.5% commitment fee. Your interest rate? Depending on your risk factors, it'll be fixed or variable. Plus, you get a pre-approved credit card. This is a limited time offer. Dial 949-8300 or email lending@caymannational.com today.
You know who this is? That same old girl that went to Hollywood and Panama? Well, guess what? The fun ain't done yet, because this year, I'm going to country concerts in Denver. I got kick up my heels in Times Square, and I got find my way to Barbados. I got keep living the dream with Cayman Airways. We so blessed to have them. I tell you what though, this old girl's feeling younger than ever.
Make your travel dreams come true with Cayman Airways, offering international non-stop flights from Cayman to New York, Miami, Tampa, Denver, Los Angeles, Panama, Kingston, Mobay, La Ceiba, and Havana, plus Barbados. Enjoy free rum punch, free in-flight entertainment, free seat selection, and free meals on select flights. Call 949-2311, contact a travel agent, or visit CaymanAirways.com.
At Doctors Hospital, we know life happens, and usually when you least expect it. So when unexpected medical issues arise, you need quality care close to home. Located in the heart of Georgetown, our accomplished team of physicians and medical staff treat minor urgent conditions such as migraines, chest and abdominal pain, shortness of breath, burns, broken bones, open wounds, and more. 24 hours, 7 days a week with no appointment necessary. Peace of mind is important when life happens. At Doctors Hospital, we're always here just for you. Need to speak to someone? Call 949-6066.
The Rotary Central Spring Storytime, Saturday, April 6th at West Bay Public Library, 10 a.m. through noon. A free storytelling children's event featuring Eric the Magician, sing-along with Miss Izzy. Exciting art and craft, prizes, refreshments, goodie bags. The Rotary Central Spring Storytime, Saturday, April 6th at West Bay Public Library. Children must be accompanied by adults. Rotary, creating hope in the world.
Hey Cayman, this is Iliane Powery, your Miss Universe Cayman Islands 2023. Do you want the opportunity to help shape the future of youth and sports in the Cayman Islands? All you have to do is complete the National Youth and Sports Survey found at gov.ky/YSP. This is your chance to make a lasting impact on our community. Have your say today, Cayman, at gov.ky/YSP.
This announcement is brought to you by the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Heritage.
The best foundation you can wear is glowing, healthy skin.
The offices of dermatologist Dr. Wayne Porter specialize in enhancing your skin's well-being. Whether you're seeking advanced skincare, including any skin cancers, Botox, filler, cosmetic skin enhancements, or simply looking to reduce wrinkles, Dr. Porter offers a full-service dermatology and dermatological surgery practice. For more information, email drporterkman@gmail.com or call 946-9020. That is 946-9020.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today. What is on your mind, Cayman?
Hey, welcome back to Ian Gilmour. Hey, thanks for sharing. I'm hoping that as people are listening, that two things. One, they engage, they're sufficiently intrigued and interested to become more informed, but also by the same token, start to appreciate, well, what's the impact of this thing? How does this affect my daily life? As a simple example, I recall an incident overseas decades ago. It was when the restaurant started to employ the little graphics on their cash registers, and you just press the button. There was a power failure. There was a really, really torrential downpour, and without question, you could see, a blackout almost everywhere. The staff didn't know how to function. Nobody knows to use a calculator. Everything was in chaos. Now, we can go to the hacking that may take place deliberately on an energy grid, or we could see a banking attack for whatever reason we hear about, denial of service and all these things. Now, to what extent AI and the bots and the troll farms would impact elections. But I come back to the Cayman context and the potential impact. Global and historical examples to the current, implications. Can you give us a perspective?
I've got one simple one to think about, which so there's a financier in New York who's talking over the last couple of days, talking about the reality of a 4-day week coming up. So a lot of the so I'm in the AI industry, but I don't believe that AI is like is all and everything. It's a job at the end of the day, right? But a lot of people are selling the promise of AI, and people are saying, well, what we're going to do if we've got anything to do, and they're selling leisure time, right? So one of the things that you could consider is if we end up with, there's no doubt that AI will increase productivity. That's a fact. But the corollary to that is that people might lose their jobs. The other way to look at it is to say, well, maybe what you could do is you could move to a 4-day week. That's one conversation. So for Cayman, you could start having a healthy conversation. Say, well, look, if we end up having to start using these technologies, say, let's give an example in an industry, right? One of the big industries here, construction, whatever. And there's a level of automation, maybe in the office, and people are starting to find that they've got more time. Now they could do more things, You could reduce the workforce, or another alternative is you could say, well, why don't we go to a 4.5-day or a 4-day week? Those are the conversations we should be having now before it happens, so we're ready.
Okay.
Yeah?
Because of the leveraging of technology. But I think back to Germany, I became cognizant of this in the early 90s. They had a 4-day work week. They had that option. Germany was probably one of the most advanced economies at that time, or one of certainly the biggest in the EU. Their productivity, their reliability of their products. Now, it was late or mid-2000s perhaps, the state of Utah in the U.S. did an experiment for its government employees relative to a 4-day work week. They found high efficiencies. They found lower complaints from staff and customer service increase, savings on energy costs, health because of exercise increase, so many benefits because of 4-day work week. They didn't employ AI. So just to challenge you, could we not achieve that now? Or are you saying deploy AI and even have greater benefits?
So those are really good points. It's not the first time. I mean, Germany is a place I know really well. So the German and the French actually have much shorter working weeks and much longer holidays than we do over here, right? So that's a fact. But that's because the Germans are more productive and the French just strike a lot more and are more vocal in their desire for a great life, which I actually personally respect. So if you think about what I'm talking about here with the 4-day week, that's just me trying to say, well, that's an option, right? It doesn't mean that AI is the only productivity gain that we've ever seen in human history, but it is one of the benefits of artificial intelligence. There is going to be an increase in productivity. That's one of its big selling points. The other thing as well is, so I'm in the Cayman Islands AI Society. We were in with Caitlin from CEC on the last thing, and in the Cayman Islands AI Society, we've been talking about human rights for quite a while. Vaughan Carter, one of my colleagues, is really, he's written papers on it and whatnot, and that's a useful subject to maybe circle back to at some point.
Yes,
I think human rights as well is something that you're very fortunate in Cayman that you've got legislation on the books that protects core rights in this country. That when you look at the way AI could affect society and you look at the rights you already have in this country, you're actually in a really good position. Actually, really good position. I actually did the analysis a couple of years ago. So from a human rights perspective, I think you can kind of take a deep breath and think, okay, that bit's kind of squared away because we've got such good legal protections here that the state's not going to be able to start monitoring us and submitting surveillance reports into court because, it's not allowed, right? You're not allowed to do it. You couldn't be prosecuted for it. So those kind of areas are less of a concern, whereas some other countries, there'd be a bigger concern, right? Some, I don't know what the legislative situation is in America, but you could foresee in certain states that might not be the case. So human rights, I think, is less of an issue.
Right. But even to that, and this is where I think I appreciate more than ever the conversations with you, but more than ever the importance of us as the electorate first and foremost, but as the wider society, ensuring that we are, aware and that we are courageous, not just cognizant, but courageous enough to challenge our MPs to question the actions or inactions of society. But to your point, legislation that we have seemingly would allow the government, the policing apparatus through the governor's office, to do a wiretap or without that court's permission on the premise that this won't be admissible. It's just for data collection, evidence gathering. Right? We have that.
That could be the gap. I'm not an attorney, but
no, right?
Yeah.
We have adverse inference in our courts, whereas in the past, if you didn't say anything, it was okay. Now, because you didn't say anything, presume that you're right. Or we have anonymous testimony. You can't challenge. A man should have the right to challenge his accuser. That's out. So these are things that are transpiring. I'm trying to officially verify, and not as diligently as I would normally, but proposed legislation the other day that the legal community was A, publicly saying they were unaware of, B, there was no public consultation, and little commentary from the parliamentarians that says, we're going to have in civil proceedings these secret trials back to the Star Courts yesteryear in the UK. Now, if these things are happening on one end and there's no public discourse, no public consultation, you see where we could end up?
I don't want to have this conversation.
But it's a conversation, young man.
It is.
We need to talk about it.
So I will say, generally speaking, when you say things like that and we talk about how powerful artificial intelligence is and will be, that's a good conversation to be having right now. Just even if it's just to flesh out the perimeter of what the realities are today legally.
I'm going to be guided by you for many, many reasons. And for me, it's better, at least initially, to listen with the intent to understand and not to respond. It's always been my mantra. But also your expertise, your kindness and your willingness to share. We have expected an election in the US in short order. The UK, two of our larger influences, seemingly, but also within a year, hence probably an election here as well. So from the country's perspective, to the sitting parliamentarians, to the aspiring ones, to the governance, to the private sector, are there things in terms of, in addition to what you shared relative to legislation, that we could and should be doing to position ourselves as a jurisdiction to be not just competitive, but perhaps to, take up share of the market?
100%.
Okay.
That's why I'm here.
All right. So because this could be the next economy, another leg. This could be.
Oh, I hope so. That's why I'm here, right?
All right.
So I think that there's a big opportunity. Now, obviously, Cayman is quite an expensive jurisdiction. It's not,
relatively speaking. I mean, come on.
Yeah,
it's more expensive in Canada.
Yeah,
come on.
So you couldn't offshore massive sort of offshoring of engineers and things like that. We can't do that. So we've got to be smarter with the way we do things. So we've got to be in the right part of the which layer of the value pyramid we're in, and intellectual property design. What I do here is I design technology. Yeah. Now that technology is going to be engineered and maybe engineered here, maybe engineered offshore, and maybe used around the world. Hopefully, we're working with Intel, so the hope is that they're going to adopt it and it will go into every single data center and every single solution they work with. So, intellectual property design, technical design, we can do that here, right? And there's lots of really smart people here, right? Now, you do need a certain set of skills, right? So we need to make sure that coming through the university system, the school system and into the university system, that you've got all these smart kids. When they come back to Cayman, nothing wrong with being an attorney, nothing wrong with being an accountant, but could we also give them opportunities to go into these new industries where they can start designing some new stuff? That's one thing. The other thing as well is that you've got some really world-class industries here. Financial services. I poo-pooed the other day with a group of colleagues about construction. And then what happened? There was a conference in Cayman about construction, talking about the role of AI. So what do I know, right? What do I know? So they had Rick's here. Actually, there is a big role for, and it didn't occur to me, but I was in, so Intel, I'm on a Slack channel with the Liftoff program. So there's about 200 of the top, I say top, I'm in it, but 200, let me put 200 startups that Intel have identified that they really want to back. So we're one of them. And they were talking about some stuff the other day, and they started talking about AI in manufacturing. Yeah. So that's nothing. I'm not even anywhere close to that. But it was really interesting to see these different industries that people are starting to explore. And that was the first time I've kind of been exposed to that kind of thought process. So there's lots of different industries that we're really good at here. Insurance, right?
Especially the reinsurance sector.
Reinsurance, oh my goodness, right? And then you've got hedge funds. I mean, how many hedge funds are here? And then you've got tourism, amazing tourism. I mean, there is actually quite a lot going on in Cayman where we're actually really, really good, and there is a role for this technology in those industries.
So is it then that as a country, and in particular as its citizens, that for somehow we're not celebrating, we're not showcasing, and we're almost unwilling, maybe we feel that it's being, a little bit too boastful. People like you could be here, you could be anywhere else, we choose to be here. There are countless others. Our financial services sector, if I might, the captive insurance. If we look at where Cayman is globally, we're the leader. If we look at the amount of 100%. Premiums that are being written in dollar value, I don't know about you, but it's a little bit more than I have under my mattress. You may have a few bucks. And yet we allow people globally and locally to make disparaging, unfounded, derogatory comments about the skill set, about the contribution and the importance of the Cayman in the global sphere.
Yeah.
Now, I don't want to...
It's a rebranding opportunity, right?
Okay.
I mean, you could call it the AI island, right? I mean, I had this conversation, I think, the last time, and, it is, listen, it is early, and there's lots of smart people in these islands, and there's no reason why we can't plant a flag and start winning there are certain sectors that we probably won't be credible in, but I would argue that in international transportation, in terms of tourism and construction,
to
take that back, definitely in financial services, definitely in insurance, definitely in high-end legal transactions, etc., etc. Cayman punches above its weight. And there is plenty there to be excited about. And I will say something else. If you don't want to be on offense, you need to be on defense, because all of these industries, all these other global centers around the world would love these industries to relocate into New York, San Francisco, Singapore. So if this country doesn't step up, then those technologies, if they're developed elsewhere and other companies are using them, market share will start to leave. So actually, even from a pure defensive point of view, we need to do something.
I think to the concept of comparative advantage, when we look at economics and industries and countries and the like, we could have a comparative advantage. Is it then that we as the policymakers, whether it's the elected parliamentarians or the appointed personnel in some other position of authority, that we don't see beyond our noses, or is it that we're not seeing the big picture? We talk about being holistic, but really, maybe there's another word we should use that I'll refrain from for now.
I have a different view. I think this place is so successful. You just don't realise how good it is. Because I was overseas. I'd been here. Actually, I was living in New York for a while, and I came here on vacation in 1998. I've got the picture up on my board, and I came back however many years later because of an opportunity that I heard about in a different country. So Cayman is there is a global. The brand or the capabilities out there, but like it or not, obviously there's different people see see the Cayman Islands in different ways, right? And we know what those are with all that sort of stuff. But there's an opportunity here with this industry to maybe be a little bit subtle. It doesn't have to say, look, AI, because it's just like everybody's saying that, right? It's just it's almost meaningless. But what you can do is you can start to use some innovative techniques from those disciplines in the industries you're already really good at to start really sort of rebranding those capabilities. And those branding can be cheaper, it can be better, safer. Those are the kind of attributes that people will buy new stuff or keep buying the stuff from you for. So I'm from financial services way back, and anti-money laundering and financial services and FATCA, OFAC, all that kind of stuff. That's all going to need technology, and it's all going to need machine learning. So we're going to have to do that anyway.
Right. And as a people, I think the Caymanians, like many, are compliant. We want to be good corporate citizens, good global citizens. But I wonder if we are not appreciative of what we have, and we allow it to be devalued for whatever reason. I think back to not long ago, as you alluded to, and the Hollywood movies, there was a presentation of Cayman being this thing that in reality it wasn't, so much so that there was consideration of to employing lobbyists, say in the UK, US, to address the negative connotations of some of the imagery that was being portrayed. But come back to the Cayman shores, is it then that here there needs to be a Cayman-ique, a rebranding, and a concerted collective collaborative effort on the part of all of us to showcase what is going forward to be this thing that is not just confidential and competent, but it has that mindset that inculcates within it, the society, this level of authority, of autonomy, but also intellect.
Competence,
that ability.
It's a well-run country, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot to celebrate. I think you could definitely do a lot more. The problem is you've got to break through the noise, right? So it has to be stuff that kind of breaks through and is meaningful. Because to just say, we're doing AI, it's like, it doesn't break through. Believe me.
Not all chocolate is created equal, right?
No, but for example, the current taste of the day, literally over the last 24 hours, I've been really hammering about privacy and privacy preservation, and Intel came up with this new branding mechanism around confidential AI. So that's the kind of soup du jour for today. It constantly morphs, but there is every opportunity. This country could, with its competitive advantage, definitely leverage some of these new technologies. And there's lots of smart people who could work out how to differentiate using these technologies to really stand out in the global marketplace. Absolutely no issue.
All right. Well, listen, I appreciate this listener reminding me that I have not, for the longest time now, said that our guest is Mr. Ian Gilmour. I apologize, Ian.
I know I am, so I'm fine.
I got so caught up in it that I should be doing this, and I used to, because I was reminded more consciously to say more frequently who are guests. We're talking about AI. We're talking to Ian Gilmour, and as the managing director. Two things: the company. I know you're part of the the special economic zone within the Cayman Enterprise City. And before we close out again, I want you, as almost unwilling and reluctantly you were, to bang the gongs of this new partnership or identification with Intel. But your company in the SEZC, what's it called?
So we have a holding company called Euler Digital, named after Leonhard Euler, who's a famous 18th century Swiss mathematician. And underneath that, we've got subsidiaries. We've got a subsidiary in the UK called AI Forum, which is a market research company. And the latest, if you like, innovation that we're designing is this dialect language model system, which has just joined the Intel Liftoff program. Which is literally happened just as we were talking 2 weeks ago, and I couldn't tell you. It's now fully out in the open. We have our kickoff meeting with Intel on Wednesday this week, and we're working with Intel engineering all over the world. It's really, I'm starting to get really excited about it, because what Intel do is they don't take any equity in the company. What they do is they effectively give us free compute, and they avail all of their top engineers in what's called Intel Developer Cloud. They're kind of big sort of their cloud platform with all the latest hardware, including the thing called Gaudi 2, which is their sort of, it does a lot of very smart stuff for the top end algorithms. We get exposure to all of their engineers. So some of the stuff that we're doing is really mathematical, and doing some stuff that we hope that their hardware is going to do stuff that hasn't been done before. We get to talk and work with their engineers for free. It's crazy. And all of that is designed here in Cayman.
And this is where I'm hoping that every single person who's listening, from that parent to the pupil, right, to that, policymaker and other, that we see what is here and what is, possible. And then somehow figure out how do we position the country, because that style, of doing things independently. No man is an island. The important part of ensuring that all of our populace has come on the same page to present Cayman, with the competence that it is. Not unlike our seafarers of yesterday who sought after, who's not just their competence, their commitment, and their dedication. It exists today in greater form. Now, where do we go from here, and how is it? Is it the legislation? Is it the understanding of the impact? Is it that we need to correct some of the misconceptions? I've got answers, but are we asking the questions?
Well, as we said before, the most important thing in the tech space is to dream big, and fail fast, fail cheap, which is a real Google thing, but it's really true. You need to learn to lean into the failures, do lots and lots of experimentation, and then when the things that work, you go all in on those. And it's hard to fail lots because it's a very unpleasant experience, but I think the Gen Z, Gen A coming through the education system here in Cayman have got the skills and have got the if you like the backdrop. If they've got the support of the country behind them to celebrate. So I'll give you an example, right? Why not take? I work with a robotics team, 345 Robotics. Celebrate robotics teams going off in different adventures around the world. Celebrate hackathons. Make them a big deal, right? Because we celebrate sport rightfully, but could we not also celebrate in the same way success at a hackathon, success at a robotics event? That would be quite cool, because then people would start to get a little bit more. It kind of almost gives everybody a permission structure to say, all right, I'm not going to do the football this week. I'm going to go and spend 12 hours locked in a dark room hammering on a keyboard. Those kind of things just will help the kids to say, right, that's a route for me, and it's something I can do in Cayman and not have to go to New York or London to do.
But even as I close, the thought of this sort of resonates in that. Let's take the individual who's in sports and using the technology, may be able to devise, as we see now, an artificial limb replicating the movement of the body.
Sorry to interrupt, but you do know there's a world-class AI technology company in Cayman called MyMotion? They're already here, but people don't know about it, right?
Why is it?
And they've got AI underneath it, right? And this is a gentleman called Michael Garrett, who I know, and he's in the Levant Centre with me as well, and his wife, Pat. They're here, but people don't know about it, right?
We got Dr. Nutt, who just so many, but for some reason I'm wondering to what extent we're finding. I'll share something with you as we walk out. I'm gonna be mindful because the announcement will come, right, Susan? Closing thoughts, my good friend. What else would you want to leave with us? And please know that the invitation will stand for our next discussion, as we talked about earlier, and with others. This country is a great place. I don't say that there isn't other, wonderful places. Some with greater natural beauty, some with other things. But let's not dismiss and disparage what is here. Let's not be disrespected in this regard. And let's not allow what has been transpiring to somehow cause us to think that we're less than. And any celebration of the Caymanian or the Caymanianists or the Cayman Islands doesn't mean that we're anti. If we're going to be anti, let's be anti-stupid. Let's be anti, we have anti-bullying. Why can't we be anti the bad, egregiousness that occur in our society? Anyway, you have been most instructive and most inspiring. Any final thoughts, my friend?
Thank you very much for inviting me on. I will say it's a really lovely. I've been here 5-6 years now, and I've got to say that it is a fairly unique place in the world, and I don't believe that, like you said earlier, that Cayman understands and can visualize what we can do together as a set of whether it's private sector, public sector, whatever, the education sector, the different industries. And it's not just AI, right? It's everything. But there are a lot of tectonic plates moving in the global economy, and I'll just say that if it's not offense, then we've got to at least play defense, right? And that means across the board, because the next 5 to 10 years, things are going to change enormously. The good news is that Cayman is very well positioned for the future. That's the way I see it.
I share that, and I like the optimism, and I like perhaps people hearing from you would be mindful. There's an adage: lead, follow, or get out of the way. That applies to everything. Thank you, Miss Susan, for everything she's done. If you notice the new graphics on the Business Buzz with the new host, you'll see the same with Talk Today in short order. I'll leave that to you to figure that out. Have a wonderful, excellent, productive, enjoyable weekend. If you don't find yourself to being good, be better. If you find yourself being better, serve to be best. If you find yourself in a place that you need instruction, well, call Susan, 1-800-534-TALK. Join Mr. Outcome on the morning for the record, and then come back for Talk Today. Until then, my friends, be blessed.
Talk Today is brought to you by Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. And Cayman Airways. Call them on 949-2311 to book your nonstop flights to Los Angeles and Panama. And now, Barbados. And Digicel, Cayman's bigger, better network. And Doctors Hospital. Peace of mind is important when life happens. Doctors Hospital, always there for you. Call 949-6066.
Covering Little Cayman, Kim and Bragg.
Radio Cayman in the